Doug Morton and Dave LaGreca are talking to the biggest names in pro wrestling on Busted Open.
Yes, we are. As promised, the one and only Billy Corgan. Plenty to talk about with Billy. It's Doug Morton and Dave LaGreca here in New York, and I guess we can at least say on a positive note, Cubs win the World Series. You gotta be happy about that, Billy.
Thank you very much.
You know,
I played my heart out and just glad to come to that city.
Yeah, I actually remember seeing you, gosh, it's 20 years ago now, and it was in New York, and you mentioned the Bulls, and you're getting boos, and you were kind of like, it's just sports for crying out loud, but it does bring you some joy.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue with the World Series after 108 years.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one for sure. So, look, it's been settled. Obviously, Anthem put out their press release. You retweeted it. It's a done deal. The one thing I could say, and as we just start to kind of dip our toes into your side of the situation, is one thing I can say for sure is you really cared about the company, and you really cared about doing right by TNA and making it a better place. And for that, we've profusely given you credit on this show, Billy.
I appreciate that, but I think it says a lot about how I feel about the talent and some of the people I work with behind the scenes. I think that they inspired me to go the extra mile, so all credit to them too.
You know, and unfortunately, I was deleted by Matt Hardy over the summer at the Hardy compound. But before he did that to me, he mentioned about you and about how creatively, how you think and how you were good for that company. And I know for me as a fan, I was really looking forward to the future of TNA with you being a part of it, because I know your passion and your love for the business, and like you said, the love for the talent that was on the roster.
Yeah, I think it'll be one of those kind of Harvard games, like what would I have done had I gotten where I wanted to go. I think there were some indications there, and I'm so hopeful that as I continue in the wrestling business that I'm able to sort of prove some of those things in different ways. But again, those creativity is all about opportunity, and I stepped into that space because I saw an opportunity with some of the talent that I was working with. And they responded because that's what they're good at. And I think that's all any talent wants. And I've obviously been on the talent side many times. They want the bar set high enough that they can reach it and then they can jump over it. So I feel good about where we were able to do that at different times. What happens next, that's no longer for me to say, but I feel good about what I was able to accomplish there.
Well, we know how much you loved the roster and the behind-the-scenes folks. What have you found in the days and the weeks that have gone by about the talent, about those people in terms of you? I mean, how much reach out have you gotten? No need to name names unless you want to, but I'm sure you've gotten quite a few phone calls saying how much they appreciated your efforts.
Great support, really, really touched me. The entertainment business can be cruel that way. You find out who your friends are fast, and I'm really happy to say that it's turned out as well as I could have hoped. The roster, certainly the people that I was in personal contact with, have stayed in touch, and have been really, really great about the whole thing. And I think in return, I've tried to give them my opinion, which is never worry about our relationship in terms of the business. Always put yourself first. Do what you have to do for yourself and your family. I'm definitely not a behind-the-scenes worker that way. I want everyone to go where they need to go for what's best for their career, because, as we know, particularly with most wrestlers who are in the ring, I mean, they have a limited number of years that they can perform at that level. So they've got to go where the opportunities are best, and I've encouraged everybody to do that. And if that means staying where they're at, and that's the best opportunity for them, then great. If they feel good about where the company's going, I certainly feel, and I've said a few times already today in other interviews, that I think Anthem was the right person to step up into the space. It's often portrayed that somehow I dislike Anthem. I've had my issues with them, which are all thankfully now resolved. But I commend them for stepping into space. Finding a professional wrestling company is a very risky proposition, and they've taken taken it on. So I applaud them at that. It wasn't a matter of they won and I lost. The issues over what went on with me and as far as legality had more to do with Dixie Carter, and that was where the issues were.
And with Dixie, I know for a lot of the fans that call into this show, they were excited about TNA because of you being a part of it. And whatever happened, between you two, and the perception of the fan is you were the good guy and she was the bad guy. It's gonna be very, very hard for a lot of fans to dedicate to watch TNA now that you're no longer a part of it.
Well, I wouldn't want that. If people choose not to watch the product, hopefully it would have nothing to do with me. I don't look at it that way. I think that ultimately it's about the talent and whether or not you like the way the talent is being, portrayed or used or booked or however you want to put it. The issues between me and her, had to do with, things like telling the truth and power struggles. And of course, the dissolution of a friendship, which had, lasted for a long time, long before I came into the company. So, that's why I'm not a solid great guy on this. I feel good about the way it's all been resolved. At the moment, there are still some lingering issues. It's not as clean as some people have portrayed it to be. But that's not issues with them, and that's issues with people that I was in business with on the business side that were at the company or still at the company.
Where did it all go wrong with Dixie?
Well, I think without getting into every little thing that happened, I think it starts with if somebody sells you a version of themselves which is not true, and you find yourself believing in that version of a person, then you have to look back and ask what was true. And I have to say that little of my experience with her was true. So I think it's pretty obvious when I started to figure out when it wasn't true and what I did to change the situation that I was in once I figured that out.
You talked about the talent, how the talent will be used in the future. That takes a hit as well because, somebody I thought did an amazing job when it came to TNA was Dave Lagana. And Dave Lagana no longer being a part of the company is a major hit to Impact Wrestling.
Absolutely, and I think that those are the things, I'm obviously more of a headline driver in this story, but when you look at somebody like Dave, who recruited talent, worked very closely with talent, spent a lot of afternoons on phone calls with talent when we weren't taping, trying to walk them through issues, problems, even at times, trying to talk people in and not leaving when they weren't being paid, many, many situations that I'm aware of. He was really an MVP at that company, and it's really a shame that they have lost him because I think that will be a much more overt and obvious hit to the company than myself.
Yeah, but probably from the on-screen product, I do think they take a major hit with Dave. I'm interested to know personally the kind of toll that this experience took on you. If this soured you on pro wrestling, what is, inside your head, inside, your emotionally, how much did this experience take out of you?
It's been distracting, but at the end of the day, I've been made whole, and I feel good about my time there. So I got enough out of it as far as learning about what I wanted to learn about, working with fantastic people, and that list is long of people that I was able to work closely with and learn from, and also help them make their careers better. I guess I would only say, to answer your question more directly, I certainly will be cautious whatever I would do next, or if I was to ever get into business with anybody who's already in the wrestling business, because that carny part of trying to take advantage of people who have good intentions, which I would classify myself as one of, that old part of the carny business has got to go. Wrestling really does need to evolve into the 21st century entertainment business. You can't keep running it like it's straight out of the carnival. You're dealing with very big players. The fact that UFC just sold for $4.21 billion tells you where entertainment is going. Vince McMahon recently said he was open to selling WWE. He obviously saw the UFC sale, I'm guessing. when you look at those kinds of numbers and those kind of opportunities, and the growth of social media and people being individual brands and individual wrestlers getting themselves over as brands just as much as, let's call them, in-ring performers, and their ability to earn money in other ways that don't require them falling down and getting back up. That's a very, very serious and sober business that needs to be approached with 21st century acumen, not old carny, how do we work this guy to get his money so we can run this wrestling company for another month. That is at the poor side of the way the business needs to be run. And the fact that I had a personal experience with it isn't really surprising probably to most people who probably saw it coming a million miles away and or who had worked with Dixie Carter before. I think that's the sad part, because at the end of the day, there are a lot of people in that company that really want to put on a great product for fans and do care, and nothing should prohibit them from being able to do that.
You know, this is so unfortunate. You giving that answer, it kind of reminds you of the territories of, the late 60s and early 70s where the promoters were trying to get over on the talent. I mean, the way you're explaining the situation, it's like the business hasn't evolved over the last 30, 40 years.
I will go so far as to say that the future of the wrestling business is people, let's call it the promoters. Let's say I'm on the promoter side. The promoters and the talent will work hand in hand like partners. The idea that somebody will be able to tell talent how they're going to walk, what they're going to do, I just don't think that's going to work like that anymore. I'm not saying that there wouldn't be booking committees and there wouldn't be people, coming up with how the finishes are going to go and stuff like that. But it's going to look much, much more like the movie business or the television business than the way we would normally classify the wrestling business. I think that's an outmoded style that's going to go away quite quickly, particularly as individual talents realize how much social media power they have on the planet. I mean, let's take Matt and Jeff, for example. Their social media power far outpaces their earnings.
Absolutely.
So a business should literally be built around them that earns them everything that they're due for who they are in the world, because there is only one Matt Hardy and there's only one Jeff Hardy, and if you want to extend them, there's only one Remy Hardy and only one Maxwell Hardy. I mean, the Hardy family name is worth so much money to people beyond the wrestling business, and that's what I'm saying. The diminishment of particular talents to keep institutional control in a wrestling company, I think that's going to erode quite quickly.
And you know what? It walks completely in contrary to how Vince looks at things, because, let's be honest, everybody's just another spoke in the wheel when it comes to his philosophy. So I'm wondering, your thoughts on how the wrestling business evolves, considering that WWE is the big behemoth right in the middle of it.
Well, I think it's really easy to criticize, the biggest, gorilla in the room. But here's the thing. Vince, personally has and continues to employ hundreds, if not thousands, of people in a business that traditionally loses money. He continues to innovate. He continues to lead the way on how wrestling can be presented. So, like the product, don't like the product, agree with the booking, don't agree with the booking, he's run the only successful model of professional wrestling that's ever existed in any company. So, I always tip my hat and say he's the only one who's figured it out. He's figured it out in a way that's beneficial to the McMahon family, and I don't blame them for that. But if you look at a similarly successful model, like the UFC model, which was obviously the Fertittas bought in at a very low price. Heck, Rick Rubin, when I was working with him recently, even told me that he had been offered the UFC before the promotion before the Fertittas bought it, and Dana White. So if you look at, and I'm trying to oversimplify, but if you look at why the Fertittas would have cashed out at this point, because the future of entertainment and let's call it live sports events is going to be a global, multinational, much, much more complicated process than somebody in a room with a cigar calling the finish. The business is evolving quickly forward, so that's why I lean more toward the side of the talent. I don't necessarily want to criticize the WWE model as much as I believe that the future model is more talent positive and more partnership based.
And is that where Impact Wrestling would have gone had you been able to stay around and execute what you wanted to execute?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, every conversation I had with people in new media, digital media, investment firms. When I would lay out my vision for the company, they were like, when we hear her name, we run the other direction. When we see what you want to do, now we want to be in business with you. They saw the opportunity that the company could have provided. So hopefully Anthem will be able to take advantage of some of those opportunities. And they certainly have deeper pocketbooks than I had. And so I'm hopeful that everybody that's involved will get from it what they need, because, like I said, this landscape is changing really, really quickly.
And it's what's unfortunate from what you're saying too is that you're the household name. I mean, everybody knows your name, and that goes a long way when you're making deals, when you're going up for a new network, which is probably what TNA is going to need to do at some point. And it doesn't look good if there's not a trust factor there when dealings with Impact Wrestling in the future. The future is very much in doubt with this company.
Well, I don't want to speak to the future because it's really not my business anymore. But what I can tell you is that in the lawsuit that I filed and some of the ridiculous assertions that were made against me, one of them was that I wasn't really working as president. I was on the phone daily with people from GoPro, people from Facebook, people from Pop TV, people who were in the investment banking community. I mean, I was working using my contacts in the world to try to find new opportunities for the company. The fact that I wasn't sitting in Nashville on the phone seemed to be something that they used to indict me. I created more reach for the company than the company had probably ever.
When you go back and look at some of the transcripts, or just go back in your memory and think about the things that were said to you in a court of law, or said about you in a court of law, is it almost, are you incredulous about it? Are you pissed about it? I mean, what do you think about when you see some of these things that we all saw written down that were transcribed from the courtroom, that I couldn't believe what I was seeing?
Well, my personal opinion is one thing, but here's what I'll say. In negotiating my settlement with Anthem, and by extension TNA, the company, or Impact Wrestling, the company, the one thing I did not do was waive my claims against certain individuals in the company that I was in business with. So that is my response to your question, is I have not resolved the issue that I still may not pursue those claims against those individuals, because there were things that were said about me and things that were asserted about me that those people know were patently not true. So if that's what you need to do to win a case or get yourself over, fine. But at the end of the day, I know, and many other people know, that that's just not how it all went down. So I've left that option on the table. I fought for that option to be on the table because, as far as I'm concerned, that part of it all was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah,
being called a predatory lender is a very interesting thing to be called when you saved the company 3 months in a row that would have had to shut the doors and literally not run its pay-per-views.
That's part of what we didn't understand, Billy. I mean, the things that were being said about you after what we know was obvious from the scrambles that ensued prior to pay-per-views, to the people that we talked to and the glowing things that they said about you. To use the word predatory in any regard about you is absolutely ridiculous, and frankly, people have to be held accountable about that. There are things that happen behind closed doors that we'll never know about, and that's not our business. And we're not Meltzer or Johnson. That's not what we do. And, we give our opinions about the world of pro wrestling. But knowing you, a little bit like we do, and again, speaking, and that's our job. Our job is to speak to people and give our opinions. Speaking to as many people as we have, and the sentiment about you, to me, it just knocked our socks off. The things that came down in court. It's not like people were smack talking behind your back. This happened in front of a judge.
Well, desperate people do desperate things, and there's a historical precedent there with this particular personality where she's willing to bend the truth or any number of things to get to the next stop at the station. So, like I said, I've left that option open, and something I'm weighing through. It's like I don't necessarily want to sit around the Christmas tree and think about it, but it's definitely sitting there because I definitely feel that I was led into a situation under knowing a certain set of pretenses which the people involved knew were not true. And then when those situations didn't turn out for most people concerned the way they wanted, they were willing to not only bury me, including behind the scenes, which, I definitely was expecting, but to stand in front of a judge and make assertions that they patently knew were not true. I mean, let me give you one little scenario. In the leading up week to the last, the pay-per-view, when, Anthem obviously stepped up to the table and provided the funding. About 5 days before that pay-per-view, I was sitting with Dixie Carter in her backyard at her pool. So how do I go from sitting in her backyard by her pool to 2-3 weeks later I'm a predatory lender? I'm sorry, but if a person's a predatory lender, you're not letting them in your house.
And that's why this has got, forget on a business level, on a personal level, this has to be heartbreaking.
Not if you consider the personality. I mean, to me, when somebody is so pathetically stuck on something, and it could be fame, it could be power, I don't know, I'm not a psychologist, but the things she's been willing to do to keep her spot, which, has been derided by almost everybody in the wrestling community, I think it speaks for itself. I don't need to pile on there. The fact that I was just another sort of victim of this kind of poor morality is probably not that unique.
Here's what we also know, other than the fact that the people in the business and the people surrounding the business, like we were talking about in terms of investors, potential sponsors, to focus on, for example, a United States TV distributor. For me, and I know this only because we talked to you prior to Bound for Glory, and you mentioned that you were out, you even said it just now, that you talked to executives at Pop TV. If I'm Pop, when that deal comes up, she's still with the company. How can I, in good conscience, keep going? How can I move forward? How, if I'm another TV provider, would I want to come on? And also, I mean, I think the Anthem piece is very interesting because they are in the distribution business. I don't get how all this is going to mix and work in Impact's favor moving forward. It seems like they are really stuck in a bad position, even though, like we're talking about, they now have some sort of financial backing to be able to move forward as a business.
Well, I can't really speak to how that's all going to work, but what I can say, based on my recent contact with Anthem, is I think they're very serious, and I think they really want to kind of clean up the picture and do what's best for the company. So if that turns out to be true, which of course I hope it is, then I think they'll make the critical decisions in the marketplace. I know they have indicated vis-a-vis one of their press releases or an interview that Len Asper gave from Anthem and the Fight Network, that they were looking at an over-the-top model. Maybe I read that wrong, but certainly that's a successful model for the WWE. So maybe they're after an over-the-top model, which to people who don't know the parlance is they're sort of your own network, where you pay a subscription or whatever, and you can watch whatever content they want to provide in exchange for that. So that's all fine and good. As far as how people in the business perceive individuals, all I can tell you is what I went through. When I was in charge of the company and I was reaching out to people, I heard story after story after story of incredible particular indictments to Dixie Carter and the poor deals she made and the bridges she had burned. I mean, it was like, it got to the point where people would start to launch into the story and I would raise my hand and I'd say, I already know where this goes. It was shockingly repetitive. Wow. The word I would use was toxic. And I worked for the company. I knew her before, and I was involved, obviously, and I talked to different people at different times. But once I was in a position of power, and people felt comfortable and thinking that there was going to be, let's call it a kind of a regime change, then they started really opening up with what they thought, and that was when it got shocking, because then I realized how toxic personality she was involving those people that they were in business with. And obviously a lot of the lawsuits and things that have come out since I filed my lawsuit were some indication of some of those practices that turn people off.
Billy, with everything you've gone through, it's a laundry list for somebody that really was a lot of fans considered a savior for this company. I mean, what are the things that you're going to miss about being a part of TNA? You mentioned the wrestlers, and I'm sure you've developed a lot of great relationships, but from day to day, what will you miss being a part of TNA?
Beyond what you mentioned, I think it was that there was a moment in time where I and a few other people believed that we were going to turn the corner. That the promise of TNA that had been hinted at different times under different regimes, under different leadership, under obviously different rosters, that there was going to be finally this kind of corner turning moment. And I felt that, and I that's why I was willing, including on your show, to be so public about my feelings about what I hoped would happen, because I really did think that we were going to get there. Now that doesn't mean that it can't still get there. I want the best for everybody involved, and like I said, Anthem, is a serious and sober company, and all my recent dealings with them indicate that. So maybe they will get there, and maybe I can step back and say, well, I was part of that process, and thank God it finally got where it got. That's all I really can say about it. I certainly had a particular vision that I wanted instilled and installed, and I worked towards that. And I guess if there's any sort of gee whiz moment, it's what would that have looked like creatively? Because I do believe we were going to turn the corner and be the most forward-leading wrestling company in terms of content on the planet, and that I felt very strongly about. So maybe they still will be. I'm trying to be cautious here in that I don't want it to seem like just because it didn't work out for me, it won't work out for somebody else. That's all I know is it didn't work out the way I wanted it to work out.
Is this the last we'll see of you in pro wrestling?
It's possible. I don't think so. I'm still pretty motivated, even though, as I've said a few times, it doesn't do much good for my musical career. A lot of people in music just look and shake their heads. They don't understand pro wrestling, even in its most basic form. They don't understand why people like us are passionate and really respect it, not only as an art form, but as a business. But I do think there are opportunities there. I'm certainly not delusional about what I can bring to the table, but I still think I can bring something to the table.
We do too. It would be sad not to see it in pro wrestling. It's been a hell of a wild ride, Billy, I'll tell you that.
Well, this is the middle. I'm cool with it. If it's the end, I don't know. It ends a little bit sourly, but yeah, I feel good. Look, you can throw money at any problem. You can throw plenty of money at professional wrestling, but I think it's just like an NFL team or a baseball team. Money doesn't get it done. It takes a certain passion, a vision, and a good group of people. And sometimes those are hard to put all together under the same roof at the same time. So whether I'm able to create that on my own or with other people in concert, that still remains to be seen. But I'm certainly after it. I'm looking and I'm talking to a lot of people.
I tell you what, at the very least, let's catch a Cubs game sometime. I got some good connections, Billy. I got some good connections, so let's go watch a Cubs game together.
Come in studio, we'll watch Flair Funk I Quit match. And everything will be
How about we do both?
Sounds good.
All right, Billy. Thank you, man, as always.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thank you, bud.
That was fascinating, Dave.
Yeah,
You get to the crux of it. Billy cuts to the chase, man. No punches pulled.
He really
particularly on Dixie Carter, right there.
And here's the thing. I didn't take part in the interview that you did the last time with Larry. And the last time that we spoke to him, you and I, Doug, he was promoting a Smashing Pumpkins album, and we just talked and shot the crap about pro wrestling. And you really saw his passion and his love for pro wrestling. And talking to him now, and I think that last question you threw at him, you can tell he's kind of on the fence. He has a love for this business, but after what he just went through, I mean, yeah, and when you have another successful career, Doug, like he does in music, I mean, why would you want to jump back into the fray with something where you're dealing with people that honestly, look, it sounds like want to stab you in the back?
Well, that, and I think the flip side of that is when I threw out just, I mean, I'm wrapping up. I'm throwing my kicker, a hell of a wild ride, Billy. And he stops right there. He's like, look, if it's the middle of the ride, okay. If it's the end, I'm not going to be a happy camper. That tells you right there, while his brain, while his business acumen is out, his heart's in.
Yeah.
And this is the same guy. By the way, I'll correct you a little bit there. The time we spoke to him, sure, as Billy Corgan, the Smashing Pumpkins rocker who loves pro wrestling. But more recently, this is obviously prior to the whole TNA run, was Resistance Pro.
Yes.
This is a guy that literally formed a regional promotion. I don't even want to call it an indie. A small regional Chicago-based promotion that, again, put his heart and soul and money into. So I don't think this guy is done. I can't see him being done. I don't think he's going to be back for a bit. I think it's a nice hiatus here, and you heard it right there. The business is hurting because Billy, frontman for Smashing Pumpkins, artist, if you will, is taking some hits from his people in the industry, shaking their heads, saying, "What the hell are you doing?" But he'll be back.
I hope so.
I bank on it.
I hope so, Doug, because this is heartbreaking to hear. Somebody who has this kind of love and wanted to show it to a roster that I think is very, very talented. Doug, now we have to move on from the Billy Corgan TNA. Now we have to move on to what we're going to get now with Dixie Carter and Impact Wrestling, kind of taking, a couple of steps back. What's the future? He mentioned a WWE type network for Impact Wrestling. I don't know if there's the fan base to be able to do that where people will spend money. Because
the fan base is there, but will they jump into anything as presently constituted? Is Anthem going to do a full scrap, Dave? Are they going to do a restart, a total redo from name to the essence, the core of the company, to everything about it? It can't be Impact Wrestling, it can't be TNA anymore. That's all got to change if they really want to do something proprietary and over the top. And by the way, if Anthem thinks they have to pay a lot to pay the debt to Billy, and I'm sure pay a debt to a bunch of these creditors, and to keep business moving, let's just see if they balk, when they balk, and what it's going to cost to create an over-the-top network that actually works.
Yeah.
Now listen, they have experience in it.
WWE is struggling right now.
But on a scale of WWE, where WWE can't even crack 1.3, 1.4, they've been completely stagnated on that number, good luck, Anthem, because I just don't think it's possible.
And it's so unfortunate because guess what, Doug? The show's good. I mean, we're going to get a show when it comes to the Hardys on December 15th that's supposed to be absolutely amazing.
But good. 150,000 subscribers good? 300,000 subscribers good?
Well, they're only getting
500,000 subscribers good?
But here's the thing, Doug. They're only getting about 300,000 people to watch their weekly show. Are they going to be able to get exactly that same number to pay?
Does 300,000 subscribers pay the bills, dude?
No, probably not. And they probably wouldn't be able to exceed that.
Do you think WWE, if they just had an over-the-top network, and that's that? By the way, we could talk about a million things that WWE does that TNA just can't. TNA can't even tour, Dave. So WWE, they go on the road, they make money on each and every one of their shows. Different levels of bank at the gate, different levels of bank with merch, etc., etc. But TNA is not WWE in many different regards. WWE makes tremendous money just on a TV rights contract, just on the money they get from NBC Universal. Think about TNA. They make bupkis when it comes to their TV contract. It's a quid pro quo, basically. Pop or whomever gets content, TNA gets a home in the United States. There's no comparison on the business model. You try doing over the top, you try doing something proprietary that you're paying for, that you're putting shekels down on, it's a tough road, Dave. Tough road when your company is still inhabited by somebody that Billy is saying literally people are running scared from, they're running away from because of how she is operating.
Yeah, it sounds like
that is damning right there.
Doug, it sounds like the problem is one person.